Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good evening. It is the Earthmaster back here on this Thursday night, May 25th, 2023. It's about 10:39 p.m. here along the West Coast, and just got outside. From outside, seen a nice thunderstorm blow over my area. Quite a bit of lightning here in Northern California. A little odd, but it's pretty cool. I mean, it really kicked up a bunch of lightning here. We'll get into that here in a little bit. As far as earthquake activity goes along the West Coast, let's go ahead and zoom in and see what we have here. A little bit of movement across the Bay Area here in California, just south here of San Mateo. It looks like a 1.7 near the Highlands Baywood Park area of California. That sits right smack dab on the San Andreas Fault, a plate boundary. Also a little bit of activity here south into the Ridgecrest area and also down along the San Jacinto Fault Zone. Nothing major going on here across the West Coast. As we look at the 2.5 map and above, only one earthquake from super early this morning, about 3 o'clock or so when I was sleeping or trying to sleep near the Bishop area there into the volcanic tablelands area. Looking up into the Pacific Northwest, only a really small amount of earthquake activity up there around Oregon. Looks like Mount Hood, one little earthquake there outside of Mount Hood, and one earthquake outside of Mount Rainier, well to the northwest. A quick glance here at, let's pull up the tremor map real quick, see what we have for tremor. There we go, look at that, it's really kicking up here. Looking at 364 epicenters of tremor along the Cascadia. It's a pretty good number. And yesterday was roughly about the same, if I recall, 294. So this is a little uptick here in tremor activity as we've seen through the past. Let's see, we can all data, I guess here. This map here, or this graph, kind of shows you the amount of tremor activity that's been taking place within a amount of time. Each spike indicative of the higher amount of tremor. And as you can see here, we did have a little tremor event peaking out here back in April. It was not as fancy as some of the events in the past as far as the elevated tremor activity. So I'm a little surprised that didn't kick really high up there, because it has been relatively quiet since about the last event, which was back in October of last year. So I was expecting that to be a significant event, although maybe I shouldn't speak too soon, because this event may turn into something major and may blast this one here out of the water. So continuing to watch this. There's a pretty good number of uptick in tremor with 364 epicenters of tremor, again down here in the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. Two specific areas just outside of Mount Shasta here to the west underneath this area, and also just west of Medford here, about 45 kilometers deep into the Cascadia subduction zone. Not really seeing any earthquake activity following this movement, but potentially watch for some further movement upstream here along the Cascadia. We did see a little bit of activity up here into the center portion of the Cascadia yesterday, a couple ones and some twos out here up along the again the Cascadia zone. Yellowstone National Park, not a whole lot going on there currently. Texas central southern plains area, fairly quiet. A couple smaller quakes there around the OKC area. One earthquake out here in the West Canton, North Carolina area, 2.4. Very shallow earthquake here into the Great Smoky Mountains, close to the Blue Ridge Mountain area. It looks like more closer to that region. Either way, that's absolutely some beautiful area. I would love to get out there and check out that scenery. Caribbean plate, only a handful of smaller quakes here across Puerto Rico and the Panama area, where we're seeing a little bit of aftershock activity from yesterday's event. That, of course, was a 6.5 off the coast of Panama, 13 kilometers deep. Again, we have seen a little bit of aftershock with some 4s out there over the last 24 hours. South America region, nothing, absolutely nada. Zip zero showing up here across the USGS map. So the EMSC model pretty much affirms that, confirms it as well. Except for some smaller quakes, it looks like around the Pre-Chile Trench, 3s and 2s, kicking off there over the last 24 hours. A little bit of movement kicking up into the Alaska area. Notice that big circle up there. So let's see what's going on. Looks like we had a 4.2 northwest here of Anchorage. USGS reporting this as a 4.1. 55 kilometers deep, just north here of the this little fault system. Castle Mountain fault, it looks like. There's quite a few fault systems that run here north of Anchorage and all around Anchorage, actually. But this 4.1 coming in just earlier this evening, being reported by a few folks there in the Anchorage area. Just some very light shaking going on. Yeah, kind of more of a larger quake than what we've seen here in a little while. Continue to watch that. 55 kilometers deep. Also up here across the Aleutian Trench as we head west. Seeing some earthquake activity as well. Nothing major, but some smaller quakes. Getting a little bit of swarming up here into this area of Alaska near Valdez. It looks like 54 kilometers east of Valdez. Some 2s and 3s going on here up at the plate boundary. This is, well, just shy of the plate boundary, it looks like. Most of this activity very shallow. So we'll watch this zone up here maybe for some further movement. The rest of the world here, the Southeast Indian Ridge, looks like it wants to be fairly active with a 4.6 and a 4.8 coming in here over the last 24 hours. That is a divergent boundary down here south of Australia. Looks like we did see a little bit of movement up here into the Solomon Islands area, west of Solomon Islands, Solomon Sea, near the New Britain area. 5.2 coming in earlier this evening. 41 kilometers deep. One earthquake here into the Loyalty Islands area. 5.5. Of course, this is some aftershock activity following the events here over the past week or so with some rather large earthquakes. Up here across the Philippines area, 5.2 and also 4.8 over the last 24 hours. Nothing major going on yet. Not seeing any major cluster across the region. This is a lot of older movement here in the red color rings. Around the Java Trench, looks like it's starting to make its way up around the bend here with some 3s right off the coast of Sumatra. But kind of expecting that to maybe kick up here in the coming days for some activity. 4.3 showing up here on the map as well. Also Mediterranean and the Turkey area all showing some 3s and 2s across this area. The Atlantic Ocean quiet for now. One earthquake down in the South Sandwich Trench from earlier. But overall, seismic activity, it looks like it's returning back to average. The thing is, you know, you don't really hear too much about earthquakes, right? You think, wow, 7.1, we haven't had earthquake activity in a while. Well, you know, there's almost always earthquake activity occurring out here along the plate boundaries. Always. California is just one of those zones. Anywhere along the plate boundary, you're almost guaranteed to see some 1s, 2s, and 3s almost consistently. All right, let me check Yellowstone National Park here real quick. See what we got going on. I don't even know why I bother with this, but sometimes Yellowstone does kick up some swarming, and well, the folks there fail to report on it. Looks like there was a little bit of earthquake activity here within the last couple hours, including what looks like maybe a close to a 2. That's what I'm looking. Let me see here. Did I even look on the map here on the USGS map? Let me see. Well, they're not even reporting the activity here within the last couple hours. The last one was earlier this afternoon, a 0.6. So unless it's above 2.5 here, they will not report it. It'll be reported tomorrow morning, hopefully, once the folks there get a visual of it, get a little bit better perspective of where it's at, and look at the data. All right, space weather out here tonight, folks. I need to take a quick shower here and dry off because I'm just soaking wet outside, standing in the rain. Don't ask me why, but actually you can ask me why, because I enjoy it. It's really refreshing. I absolutely love being grounded with the rain and the lightning overhead. That's my type of weather. It's really refreshing. Space weather. What do we got? Things look like they are tapering off here, unfortunately. This regional sunspot is dying fairly rapidly, not as complex as what we witness here a few days ago. So even though it looks ginormous here, there's not a whole lot of complex structure within this whole area of the sunspot. And there's a couple different sunspot cores here, but overall things are looking pretty wimpy across that area. One region here that we're watching is this rapidly intensifying sunspot down here, almost center disk, just south here of the center disk of the sun. That is going to be 3315. 3315 is looking a little bit more complex than what we've seen this morning. But aside from that, that's about the only other sunspot noteworthy of mentioning here in the video. 3315 looks like these guys have it set as a beta magnetic structure on the UV filter here. Kind of see a little bit of amplification here as far as the brightness goes. We'll continue to watch that though. See if it what's that, tornado here on the sun? Never know. Get these awesome magnetic structures shooting off there, some plasma. Sun's absolutely stunning and beautiful to look at in pictures, but definitely not visually. Don't want to do that. If you had an awesome solar telescope, that would be really cool. You got to make sure you have the right lenses to view that. Something I may have to look forward to getting here. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. Pretty much, if you were looking at a solar telescope, this is pretty much what you would see, the visible disk here and these massive sunspots. But you can have hundreds of them on here. If they're not complex and unstable, we're going to be looking at calm conditions, kind of like what we're seeing here below the sea level threshold. So it's dipping down there. Current threat still shows 99% chance for a C flare. M flare at 35, X around 5. I think these are probably going to be dropped before the morning comes, just due to everything looking fairly stable for the most part now, except for, again, 3315. That does show a little bit of growth currently taking place. All right, Storm Prediction Center. I'm really glad the thunderstorm outlook here kind of transpired here across the west coast. It was pretty cool. We did get some storms out here just outside of Chico, dropping some lightning and some rain. That was pretty awesome, man. I'm really thankful for that, because most of the time these thunderstorms that pop up and come out of the north, they die out really rapidly because of the downslope here in the terrain. But there's actually enough moisture out there from the heating and whatnot throughout the day that this thunderstorm pretty much fed off of. But also, not to mention that our rice fields are full of water again. We have a lot of irrigation out here, and the heat, and I have yet to prove it, but it makes sense, right? If you have land covered by an extensive amount of water, we have hundreds and hundreds, thousands of acres out here covered with water for the rice, and it's very shallow water, and the sun beats down on that, kind of creates a little bit of evaporation and some more humid type environment in the daytime. And when say after the sun goes down, that air kind of rises and could create and feed some of these thunderstorms that are popping up around here. So it's kind of an unusual storm for it to hold together for so long. And considering the motion coming out of the north like that and down slope, just a little odd. But I still think the rice fields and whatnot do create a little bit of more instability for these thunderstorms to feed off of. Nothing like what we're seeing out there around Tucumcari, New Mexico. I mean, we're talking thousands of lightning strikes probably out there just outside of Tucumcari and into portions of the Panhandle. But that's pretty awesome, because these areas need the rain like crazy, and that's good news. But as far as any major severe weather threat, this is tomorrow's threat. Looks like they have enhanced an area. Speaking of New Mexico, looks like Carlsbad, Lovington, and the Andrews, Texas area all getting in on a slight chance of tornado probability, with 5% probability there in Lovington, New Mexico, Andrews, Texas area. So just a heads up if you're going to be out there. 5% probability, also 2% there across an area further to the north and south, also up into Colorado and looks like portions of Nebraska as well. Wind event's going to be a pretty big deal. Looks like 30% chance of wind down there in New Mexico. And, of course, you got the hatched area. Indicated some major big hail taking place here with some of these thunderstorms tomorrow, with a 30% chance hatched probability of 2-inch diameter hail or larger within 25 miles of a point. Pretty big deal. Yeah. All right, folks. I got to go dry off here, but I definitely enjoy me some thunderstorms at night. They just don't come often out here in Northern California. So when they do, I appreciate them, and I take full advantage of them by standing out here, just kind of cleansing. It's actually really refreshing. We've got this area north here of the desert, or the northern end of the Death Valley. There we go. Yeah, my cleansing, it worked perfectly. I forgot all the words I was going to say. So yeah, right up here across the Death Valley area, getting in on some swarming again. This does see, or this has seen quite a bit of activity here over the last week. Pretty good cluster of quakes, 140 earthquakes over the last 7 days. And of course, it goes back months prior as well, earlier this year. So just got to look at the whole picture here. You know, a little bit of segments are moving, a little bit of fault systems showing some activity. Some areas that have not seen any movement out here, of course, is the southern branch here of the San Andreas Fault. We already know that's locked and loaded. And also, here around the, looks like the area just north of the Garlock Fault shear zone, this area of the San Andreas Fault is very quiet. We haven't seen any type of movement. But we know the stress is building there. We definitely know it's accumulated. And the question is, how much longer can it accumulate? You know, it's just got to watch it and be prepared. All right, folks, have a good night. We'll catch you guys back here sometime tomorrow morning. Take care, everyone.